All right, good morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Hope everyone is well. Hope you had a restful holiday yesterday, but good to see you all here, at least as we mark the very end of this week. But hope you had a good time on the chats this week, and of course in everything else that you've been doing. But we're glad that you could join us. For the sake of guys who are joining us for the first time, karibuni sana. John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit, so it's not a one-man show. So we also do have Mitch here. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will definitely be getting back to you. So we'll start off by looking at the watch list as always. So of course, feel free to take note of what the watch list is going to be looking like today. I know we did send it in, or yesterday's watch list rather, on the Telegram channel. Hope guys took advantage of that information. You can't see the watch list for today, a couple of changes here and there. So feel free to take note of that. But of course, since we won't be doing any recaps in terms of what happened on the charts yesterday, because we didn't have a webinar, we can start off by looking at a couple of screenshots that we did end up getting from you guys. So we'll start off with this one. This one is from Christine, and of course also from the previous day, because like I pointed out, we didn't have a webinar yesterday, so we didn't showcase them. So we need to do justice. So we'll start off with this one from Christine. So this is on gold. So I can't see that you got a selling opportunity on this one. Good sell, especially in terms of where you got the sell, right at the top where the sellers are. Price came down, and I can't see that your stop loss was just above your point of entry. But although it also could have been, at break even, just to make sure that at least it's a risk-free trade. But it's good to see that you did mitigate your risk, and I can't see that you did have, this level right here. Hopefully, you did end up doing some sort of money management within that area. But that was a really good trade. So shout out to you for that, Christine, and of course, keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from Dan Bickett. I think there were 2 or 3. So this is on gold as well. So I can't see that you got the buy. And you're also making some good returns on it. Can't see that the stop loss already above your point of entry once the market started to move in your favor, which was really good. Of course, in terms of money management, in terms of entry where you got the buying opportunity, right at the bottom, where we do have the buyers. So this was really good. I mean, like we always point out, buy with buyers, sell with sellers. And of course, just by doing that, you can see that the entry on that one, and of course also on Christine, very, very good entries. So keep up the good work. So you also did get sell. This is on the NAS 100. So I can see you got a bunch of selling opportunities. One at the top right here, which was quite a sniper entry. And of course, I can see additions within this region here. Can't see that your stop loss, one stop loss is here and another one is here. But of course, I know that you're managing, the market or the trades as the market was moving in your favor. So this was good. Can't see that you had, a leveled out within this region right here, possibly an area you are targeting. But of course, in terms of, how you're going about it, in terms of even money management, not bad. So shout out to you for that, Dan Bickett, and of course, keep up the good work. So we also did get a trade or a screenshot. This one is from George. George, if you're here, shout out to you as well. So this is on gold. So I can see that you got a buying opportunity on this one. I can see that you got the buy within this region. If you got it on the pullback, then this was really good. So shout out to you for that. And of course, I can see that you're targeting somewhere within their stop loss, just within this region right here, which is okay. Bit tight. Maybe could have been a bit better, maybe somewhere within this region, because maybe the market might just pull back in within this region before possibly moving to the upside. But nonetheless, in terms of money management, not bad. Of course, in terms of entry, very, very well done. And I can't see that, just targeting right at the top right there, which, I mean, you're not too overly ambitious in terms of how far to target, which was good. Last but not least, this is a trade that I did get. This was on the euro against the Swiss franc 2 days ago on Wednesday during the US session. Buy somewhere within this region. Price went up. Stop loss, can't see, already above my point of entry, but you can't see that it was after the market pulled back in within this region, and that's when I put the stop loss there. I did manage within that region. Did manage to go a bit higher up, but of course, we do know things have turned. The market has calmed down, but at least already out of that trade. But I can't say that it was a bad trade. So shout out to everyone who did end up sending in a screenshot or two. We're always happy to see your screenshots. So if you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details should be there on the chat box. So we're gonna move on into matters today. So hopefully for the guys who come in a bit late, you have taken note of what the watch list is gonna be looking like. So we're gonna be mixing and matching up the buys versus the sells. So we'll start off with the yen pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the sell, then the Australian dollar, the New Zealand dollar, then we'll finish off with the Great British Pound. And also, we did start off the webinar a bit late. Reason being, we had a couple of fundamentals that did just come out right now. You can't see the Great British Pound news events, quite a number of them, and also some Euro news events. We did need to figure out what we're going to be doing with them. So that's the reason why we also started off a couple of minutes late. But I'm sure you guys have been used to that because, I mean, when the news events do end up coming out at 9, we definitely need to factor that information into our analysis. So that's the reason why the webinars normally start off a bit late sometimes. But looking forward, you can see that today it's going to be quite active on the charts. Quite a number of news events that are going to be coming out. You can see some CHF news that's coming out at around 10. You can see more GBP news. And of course, during the US session, as always, the USDs and the CAD news events are going to be there. So I guess we should be expecting quite a lot of activity on the charts today. So let's start off with the yen pair. So we'll start off with the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So hopefully you can take note of these three regions right here. These are the three areas where we will be trying to see whether we can get some sells. Right now, the market has come in within this region. Hopefully, we should maybe get the market bouncing off this area. If it does come in somewhere as close as possible within here, it doesn't necessarily have to come back in within here. I mean, this is the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our sells. But maybe we could find the market just coming back in within this region or somewhere within here. But generally, what we want to see is a pullback. We can read slowdown of the sellers, of the buyers. The big sellers really starting to show up within that area, and then we could possibly try and see whether we could get our sells. So that could be one scenario. So we could get the market maybe coming back in within there. You could maybe find it there, maybe at around 3-430. Could get the sells within that region. If not, and let's say the market can move to the upside, there are definitely minor areas within here where you can get sells, but I think you really need to be good in terms of looking at the charts on the smaller time frame, because that might be maybe like 3-1, type of trade, a quick in and out, because you also need to get some proper risk to reward, just coming back in within this area, because the problem area still will remain within this area. And to get some proper risk to reward coming down, and that means that your stop loss also needs to be quite tight. So the other alternative would be if the market breaks to the downside of this area and possibly holds within this region here, then you could possibly find that maybe there could be another push of the sellers to the downside. You can see that yesterday they did start their push to the downside. The buyers have been really attempting to push the market off this region right here. You can see their first attempt came back in within there. And right now you can see that the market is more or less holding within here, which to some extent tells us that the buyers within that area are almost out. But, you can't rule them out. Just give them the benefit of doubt because they're still attempting to push to the upside. So this is what we will be waiting for. Remember the red SNR at the top. In case the market breaks and holds above that region to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities as well. So hopefully you can take note of those three areas. So you can see that the market almost to some extent looks like it's getting into some sort of a range here. And we definitely can see that the sellers are sitting here. So I will be waiting to see if we can get the market coming back in, somewhere as close as possible within this region here. I think the best sells could definitely be hiding somewhere within here, so that at least if the market comes down and we start to encounter issues, within this area, at least we can manage the trade at a profit. So make sure that you watch out for that. Of course, considering the fact that the market had probed within here, this is a good sign. It tells us that there are definitely some sellers who are sitting within this region right here. So let's see if we can get those buyers pushing the market as close as possible within there. Remember to manage your trades, of course, within the major SNRs that we pointed out, but also quite a number of minor SNRs where you could also find the market possibly getting into some issues, and you also can manage your trades within there. So watch out for that. Of course, remembering that these are also areas where you can also scale in. if you're good at trading, I mean, if you manage your earlier trades, you definitely can jump in on other trades, new trades within that region, but you really need to read the story of what happens within those regions. As the market breaks to the downside, if you get some proper pullbacks and holds, then you could jump in on additional trades. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities as well. So hopefully you can take note of those three areas right there. So we will be waiting to see whether we can get the market coming back in within this region here. There's some sort of a minor SNR within here, and you can see that the market has turned off this area a number of times. You still can't find the market turning off this area right here. But I think considering the fact that the sellers are not really able to go any lower, they might need a better price. And that's the reason why we're thinking maybe there's a possibility price might actually come in within this region, especially if it attempts to break to the upside of this area. Maybe that might activate, these sellers who are sitting here. And you can see that yesterday during the US session, that's where the sellers did actually start their push to the downside. So possibly they might need those sellers to get the job done. If that does happen, then at least we could get some good sells there coming down. If not, then just watch out for the region at the top. Definitely the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get those aggressive selling opportunities. I mean, if the market breaks and holds above that region, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So last but not least, for the yen pairs, we do have the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're going to be trying to also see whether we can also get some sells. So these are the three areas that we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can take note of them. Right now, the market is back in within a seller's region or some sort of an SNR, which is good. So we just need to see the slowdown, of the buyers within this region right here. And, if we possibly get, some attempts of the buyers to actually break above this region to the upside and they're unsuccessful, that's a good sign because it tells us that the sellers within this region have actually contained, the buyers within that area. And it's just a matter of just watching out for the times. You could find that if it doesn't work out at 10 during the London market open, maybe it could work out during the US session. So we're talking about 3 moving into 4:30. So you could watch out for that to see what happens. Maybe this whole rollover phase that I've pointed out here might actually end up taking a whole session before the market is ready to move. Alternatively, also watch out for this region at the top right here. I mean, if the market breaks and actually holds to the upside of this region, then it means that maybe the sellers might need a better price. That much better price might be somewhere within this area right here. And you also could find that maybe for the market to actually go up and turn within this region, it might actually take a whole session. So the whole of the London session, it could be on the pullback only for around 4:30. That's when the market is actually set to move. So watch out for that. But of course, remember the red SNR at the top, in case the market now breaks and actually holds above that region, then unfortunately at that point in time, then we will have to be on the sidelines unless or until the market breaks to the downside of that area. So that's pretty much it for the yen pairs. So we're going to move on to the AUD pairs. I'm going to mix and match up the Australian dollar with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up watching out for these 3 areas. These are the 3 regions that I will be watching out for to see what does end up happening. So you can see that the market turned off this region to the upside. So yesterday during the Asian session, during the US session, and you can see that the market was fooling around here, attempted to break to the upside. This was during the Asian session. And right now during the Frankfurt session, the market is attempting to come back into the downside of this region. You can see that the market was in some sort of a range within this area right here. So we're expecting to see if this was a breach of structure, then we're waiting to see what happens, especially on the pullback. If the market actually bounces off this region, then I guess we'll have to end up looking for those buying opportunities down here. Because if we're back in, inside the range, then we definitely know that the best buying opportunities are at the bottom of the range. So we'll have to wait and see if we can get something like this. Alternatively, remember, in as much as the market has come down, it doesn't mean that the market will have to come back in within here. It could even just be coming back in to look for these regions right here. Maybe it just needs to do some sort of a retest, especially if the market was going up. If it bounces off there and we get some aggressive buyers, it's really pushing the market to the upside, and the market holds above here, then that's a good sign because it means that there was a clear breach of structure. And I mean, even if the market did actually come back in, this was some sort of a retest still within this region, especially if it proves within here. And at that point in time, we look for the buys, especially after we get this, then at least possibly we could get the market coming in within there. So it's just a matter of just being a bit patient. So for this one, let's see what happens. Of course, just watch out for those two scenarios right there, but also watch out for the red SNR. And no matter what you do, make sure that you do trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk at all times. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one as well. So hopefully we can end up taking note of those three areas right there. So you can see that this one is also on some sort of a pullback, but this one, it seems like the market has bounced off that region right there. Let's see what happens. You could find that maybe during the London session, the market could be on the pullback, coming back in within here. And you could find that during the US session, that's when the market might actually be back in here, maybe at around 4:30. So let's watch out and wait and see what happens. But also remember, just like we've pointed out on the previous one, if you get the market breaking and holding above this region to the upside, even if the market doesn't come back in within here, maybe there could be some minor buyers who are somewhere within here, but it's a bit of a tricky balance in terms of getting the buyers just coming up within here, because we're only looking at about 9 pips coming up. So I mean, in terms of getting a proper risk to reward on that, it might be a bit hard, because you might need to have a stop loss of maybe about 3 or so pips. And I don't really think the broker is going to allow you to do that, especially on the Australian dollar pairs. So you're better off waiting for the market to break above here. If it does on the pullback, you could definitely look for those buying opportunities within that area. So that is what the plan is going to be looking like on the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities as well. You can see that also this one is pulling back. And just looking at the 3 AUDs that we've looked at so far, and you can see that they're all pulling back. That tells you that it's definitely something to do with the Australian dollar pairs. They're on the pullback, which means that when you see one turning, have a look at the others. Maybe you could find that maybe they all want to turn at the same time. And if that's the case, that's a good thing, because that tells us that the big boys are actually now back in and they're pushing. Because right now, if the pullbacks are happening on all of them, this is definitely the big boys, who are pulling them back. So there's definitely something they're looking out for. Hopefully, when they're going back to looking for those proper prices, then at least when we get the market turning, we should be ready to jump back in on the charts with them and possibly push the markets up higher. So for this one, let's see what happens. The sellers are coming in quite aggressive, which is not really good. But let's see what happens, because if the market does end up slowing down within here, especially if we do get attempts, the sellers to actually take out the buyers who are sitting somewhere within here and they're unsuccessful, and get the market holding within here, could get some probes, spikes, pin bars, and all sorts of things within that area. At least then that's a good sign. Then just watching out for the times 4:30, you could get some proper buying opportunities on this one. But make sure that you watch out for this region at the top. I mean, if the buyers came up and the sellers were able to contain them within there, even on the second attempt, you just need to be careful within that area. You still could find the sellers coming in within that region. But also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. I mean, if the market does come back in within that area, then at least you should also be ready to possibly end up jumping in on some buying opportunities within there, but also dependent on what happens, of course, based on the story of what happens when the market comes in within there. So last but not least, for the AUD pairs, we do have the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those 3 areas right there. You can also see that this one is also kind of similar to the rest of the AUDs, of course, to the upside, considering the fact that the Australian dollar on this one is to the right. It's the counter currency pair, unlike the others where it's the base. But generally, you can see that there's also a pullback happening on this one, which is definitely something to do with AUDs. So let's see if we can get the market slowing down within this region. Right now, the buyers are coming up quite aggressive. You definitely don't want to be hitting a sell, especially when the market is coming back in this aggressive. You definitely need to be a bit more careful with that. And also considering the fact that even if you hit the sells here, In as much as we're within a resistance area, the main question you should be asking yourself is where exactly are you going to be putting your stop loss? At least if the market can actually give us, some probes, some pin bars and such kind of things, at least you can have an idea of where to put your stop loss. But right now, based on the fact that the market is coming back in like this, the safest area to have your stop loss is all the way up here. And I don't think you'll get a proper risk to reward coming down, so you're better off just waiting. Maybe the market might even come in all the way to within this region. Based on how the buyers are coming up, we don't know how far they can go. So let's just wait and see what happens. But ideally, remember the red SNR at the top. I mean, if the market breaks and holds above that region to the upside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trading opportunity for us. So we're going to move on to the next set of currency pairs, which are the New Zealand dollar pairs. So we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So watch out for that region right there. Can see some sort of pullback coming in within that region there. Sellers seem like they're coming in quite aggressive. But it's okay. I mean, like we've pointed out, we definitely need to see what happens. The market could just be coming back in, for some sort of a retest within that area before the buyers do attempt to move to the upside. If you do get the buys within here, just make sure that you watch out for this area here. And even put some sort of a minus SNR within there, because you can see that the market has come in within there. The sellers did react. The second time the buyers went up, the sellers still did react. So there's some sort of a minus SNR here. And as much as the major level is high up within that area, just make sure that, when the market comes in within here, you're not too sure whether the market will break to the upside. You could do some money management, even if you target that region at the top right there. But also watch out for this region at the bottom. I mean, if the sellers or if the buyers rather do actually need that price, then there's a possibility the market could actually be coming back in within that region. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're also going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So right now, the market seems like it's coming somewhere as close as possible within this region. But it seems like the sellers within here are actually giving some sort of a pushback to the buyers who are pushing up. Can't see that from the US session, late US session yesterday into the Asian session, the market was going up. Generally, not really the big buyers that we want to see. So there's a possibility the market might be coming down. Maybe the buyers might need to regroup, before they actually give it another go. So let's see what happens on this one. But of course, doesn't mean that the market has to come back in all the way to within here. I mean, if it does, then that would be good. In terms of risk to reward, we definitely have more room to play with to the upside. But there are also quite a number of SNRs, minor SNRs within these regions where the market could just be tapping back until. But the best buys would possibly be if we can get the buyers maybe pushing to the upside of this region right here, especially challenging the sellers within there, and we get the market actually holding within this area, especially if we get the market even attempting to break to the downside a number of times, somewhere within this region, and we can visually see, that the buyers within this area have, the sellers within this area have actually been contained by the buyers who've stepped up within their region, then that would be good. Then we can possibly look for the buyers to possibly push up till within that region. So let's wait and see what happens. But of course, remember the red SNR, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our aggressive buying opportunities. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we're going to also be trying to see whether we are going to get some good buys. Can't see the market is pulling back in. Let's see what happens. If we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within here, the better. Just a matter of reading the story, watching out for the times. And ZDs also have, I don't know why, but they always tend to move at around 1. You can also watch out for that time, especially for NZDs. I don't know why they normally sometimes tend to move at that time, because that's at around, when it's 1 here, it's around 10 p.m. In New Zealand. I don't know why NZDs somehow tend to move at around that time, but you can watch out for that. You could find that maybe the market could be on the pullback, then it could be around here at around that time. Maybe during the US session, you could get some proper buying opportunities off this area right here, coming up till within there. But just make sure that you watch out for this region right here as well. Possibly could also end up being some sort of a minus SNR that you can't possibly end up running into some issues with the opposite party. But also watch out for this region at the bottom. Of course, I mean, if the big boys do actually need that price, then at least we will be ready for it as well. So last but not least, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. For the sake of guys who are new to trading, and you're wondering why are we looking for sells on this one and yet we're looking for buys on the other, we're supposed to be buying the NZD. And you can see that on all these other currency pairs, the New Zealand dollar is to the left. So it's the base currency pair. It's the basis of what we're doing. On this one, it's to the right. So it's the counter currency pair. So for us to sell or to buy the New Zealand dollar, then we need to sell the euro, which is the basis of this chart right here. So for this one, we'll be going the other way. You can't see the pullback is coming in. Something almost similar to what we've seen with the rest of the NZDs. So it tells us, even just looking at the watch list as we're going down, you can see that the big boys, the pullbacks are coming in on the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar pairs. So that tells us that the big boys are definitely pushing the markets on those ones. If they do turn, hopefully they should be able to turn together collectively. So let's see whether that will be the case. So for this one, let's see what happens. Hopefully we can get the market slowing down within here. Hopefully these sellers within this region right here can actually contain the buyers coming up. You can see definitely some sellers who are sitting within this region. Hopefully they can't contain the buyers and they do actually end up pushing them to the downside of this region. Hopefully we could get some good sells coming down. If not, and the buyers do actually blast through this region to the upside and the market holds within the upside of this region, then I guess we could possibly try and see whether we could get the market coming back in within that region at the top there. So hopefully you've taken note of that. Remember to watch out for your risk as always. I mean, over and above showing you guys the setups that we'll be watching out for, we're also here to promote good, smart, and responsible trading. And part of that responsibility is making sure that you always trade with a stop loss and always stick within your risk parameters at all times. So we're going to move on to the last set of currency pairs, which are going to be the GBP pairs. So we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three regions right here that we will be watching out for. Right now, the market has come back in within this area right here. We'll have to wait and see if we can get the big boys activating, somewhere within that area there. But generally, what we can see based on what happened yesterday, you can see that the sellers came down. The buyers were able to push the market to the upside. The sellers again attempted, and the buyers were able to push the market to the upside and actually held within this region. So that tells us that there are generally buyers who are sitting somewhere within this region right here. So hopefully, let's see if we can get, maybe the market might attempt at that time to come in lower. And I mean, if the sellers are unsuccessful in terms of pushing the market and actually holding to the downside, then there's a possibility then at that point in time we could get the buys possibly lifting off this region right here to the upside. I mean, if you look for buys within this area right here, the best area to actually have your stop loss is down here, which is around 27 pips. I mean, if you do end up doing that, the only problem that you'll end up having on that trade is, let's say if you just jump in on a blind buy within here, coming up to within this region right here, can't see that the problem that you end up facing is that the risk to reward is actually not that great. But at least if we can get possibly to read a bit more of what happens within here, especially on a smaller time frame, you could find that you could actually bring in that stop loss a bit tighter. And you can see that when that happens, then the risk to reward also ends up becoming a bit much better. So let's see what happens on this one. Of course, if we do get the buyers lifting, especially considering the fact that the GBP news events that have just come out right now, quite a number of them are actually positive. So maybe the market is just waiting for the London session to actually open at 10, and you possibly could find the markets moving. But generally, you can't see that out of all of them, a good number of them are actually positive. I think there are only two of them that are negative. But generally, hopefully, we should be getting the buyers possibly pushing to the upside. If that doesn't happen and the market breaks beneath this region to the downside and actually holds beneath here, then at that point in time, there's definitely going to be no trade for us on the Great British Pound against the US dollar. We're better off looking for opportunities elsewhere. So moving on into the next one. This is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get buying opportunities on this one as well. So let's see what happens within these three areas right here. Right now, the market is more or less holding within here. The buyers are definitely struggling to push the market to the upside, especially considering the fact that you can see that the sellers really stepped in within this region quite aggressively. So, of course, the market needs to turn around. This could be part of the rollover phase. But you can see that the sellers attempted to actually break beneath this region to the downside, but the buyers were able to push them back to the upside and actually contain them within there. So let's see what happens. Hopefully, the sellers might attempt on their second attempt, to come in lower, especially considering the fact that they came in quite aggressively here. They might attempt again, and if they cannot, I think at that point in time, we could get the market actually turning to the upside. Just make sure that you watch out for this region here. But ultimately, of course, if we do get the buyers really coming in, hopefully we should get the market coming back in within that region. But also watch out for the red SNR. If the buyers don't come in and the market actually breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately for us, there will be no trade for us on the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buys. So you can see at least this one, the market has been pushing to the upside. GBP/CHF was coming down. So maybe that's a reason why it might give you a bit of an issue, especially when the market is trying to roll over within that area. But at least this one, you can see that the market has been pushing to the upside, which is good. So right now, the market seems like it's just bounced off this region. But I best suggest that you don't actually end up chasing the buys, because I know that sometimes, especially when you see that you're timing a buy and the market has started moving to the upside, your mind might actually tell you that the buy is taking off and you actually end up taking the buy somewhere within this region. Don't do that. Wait and see if you can actually get the market coming back in within here. It can. I mean, even if the market does actually end up going to the upside, then it's okay. You don't really need to chase. There'll definitely be other opportunities on other currency pairs. But for this one, I would best suggest, and I would definitely be waiting to see whether I can get the market coming back in as close as possible within here. Because if you hit the buy here, this is definitely an area where there are some sort of minor sellers within this region here, and you still could find the market reacting to the downside. And I mean, you hit the sell there, market stops you out, then you're left there wondering, why couldn't I just have waited, for the market to actually come in back in within here. So it still can come in. Let's wait and see whether that could possibly end up being the case. There are also levels within here where you could find the market just coming back into tap. And you can see that the market went up, the sellers came down quite aggressive within this region here. The buyers have attempted to come up, but you still can't find that these sellers might still attempt to push and take out these buyers to the downside, and you still could find the market coming back in within here. So watch out for that, but there's also a possibility. I mean, market can also tap back in within this region. You can see that yesterday the market was high up within this area and it still tapped back in within this region right here, although quite fast. But you can generally see that it's possible that the market can still come back in within this area. So let's wait and see what happens on that one. But also remember the red SNR at the bottom, in case the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So last but not least, on the currency pairs, we do have the Great British or the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some sells. So for the guys who are new, bear in mind, once again, GBP on this one is to the right, unlike the others. So by buying GBP, we should automatically be selling the euro on this one. So these are the three areas that we will be watching out for. So right now, the market is just bouncing off this region to the upside. Let's see how far these buyers can actually go. There's a possibility they might just come in within this region here. You still technically could find some sells happening off this area here. I mean, if you do get the market attempting to go to the upside, can't come back in, find the sellers maybe reacting off this area here, then you definitely can get some selling opportunities coming down. But this being Euro GBP, this is not really quite a lot of pips. You see, that's only about 9. And that's the reason why it's possibly better maybe getting the sells higher up within this region right here. Or if the market can't actually come in all the way to within there, then it's okay to actually let go of this sell right here and maybe attempt the sell when the market breaks beneath this region to the downside. Here, you stand to gain at least a bit more, 16, which is not too bad. But also remember, when it comes to Euro GBP, the pip value is quite high. So it may seem like some very few pips. It's only when you actually take the trade and the market starts to move that you realize that the peak values are quite high. Some small moves can actually end up generating large profits. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Of course, remembering the red SNR at the top, definitely this is going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last selling opportunities. So that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. So hopefully you have taken note of that. So we will move on to the indices and the commodities. So you can see silver and gold, both on the sell side, the NAS and the Dow Jones on the buy side. So nothing has changed from what you had yesterday. So we'll start off with this one, the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, the bias was to try and see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the three regions right there. That we had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within this region. It came down, expecting maybe price to come back in within this region and possibly turn off this area right here. And you can see that during the US session, that's when it did that. But you can see that at 3, price was somewhere within there. It was only around 4:30 that price was back in within this region right here to move to the upside. And you can see that the market is more or less holding within this region. So for this one, we'll be waiting and watching out for the same areas that we did have yesterday. The market has not really gone far and beyond the areas that had been pointed out, the levels that we're watching out for yesterday. So the story is exactly the same. So for this one, let's see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere within this region right here. Possibly the market could start to range. We're not too sure. But generally what we know is that the market is being contained within here and the buyers are generally somewhere within this area. So if we can get the market coming back in somewhere within this region right here, then at least we could try and see whether we could get the buying opportunities. I mean, the proper buys are definitely within here. If that doesn't happen and the market actually breaks to the upside of this area, then we could look for those more conservative buying opportunities. So hopefully you take a note of that. But also remember, when it comes to the indices and the commodities, for as long as price is holding above the red SNR, then the bias is always to look for the buying opportunities. If you do get any sells, then the sales are counters. It doesn't mean that they can't work, but just have it at the back of your mind that you're generally going against the overall flow of where the big boys are going. And of course, if the market breaks to the downside or it actually holds to the downside of the red SNR, then at that point in time, we start to look for selling opportunities. So that's how we normally do end up approaching them. So for this one, the Dow Jones, for this one yesterday, the bias was to try and see whether we could have gotten some buys. Here you can see the 3 areas right there. I think we had pointed that out on Telegram, and you can see in the morning price was there. Price came down, we were expecting that, bounced off this area, but unfortunately price just couldn't come back, the way to within that region at the top there. But generally you can see that there was a real fight going on within this region, and the buyers within this area at least still more or less containing the sellers, and they were able to push them back to the upside. And if you look at how the buyers went up, quite aggressive, all the times when the market came in within here. And if you look at what's going on right now, it seems like the sellers are possibly quite exhausted. If you look at the small miniature candles coming down. So that tells you that maybe, hopefully, if it does end up still struggling to come back in within here, we could possibly still look for the buying opportunities. But there's also a minus scenario can possibly end up adding within this region here, because you can see that the market went to the upside, bounced off here, went up again. And yesterday, in as much as the market was really in some sort of a fight within this region, especially considering the fact that the buyers have been able to push the sellers to the upside right here quite aggressively. If the sellers actually don't have enough strength, to push the market all the way down to within here, then there's a possibility you could actually end up getting the buys, possibly lifting off this region right here. So we could possibly also end up watching out for that area, but making sure that we're watching out for the top region, right? They're definitely the region where you should be managing your trades. So watch out for that. But remember the red SNR at the bottom right there. I mean, there's a possibility. The sellers may be looking weak right now, but they could actually end up getting some strength, out of somewhere, and you could actually find the market actually going back all the way till within that region. If it does, then at least we should also be ready for that. So the next one, this is silver. So for silver, yesterday the buyers was to try and see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So these are the 3 areas we had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. The market was within this region. Yesterday morning, we wanted to see the market either come down Unfortunately, that didn't happen. It came up within this region right here, but when it came back in within here, it's like the sellers were just not interested with these prices. So you can't see that the market went to the upside. This was the area that we had, but we did end up doing some slight adjustment to it. Reason being, if you do actually end up going up a higher time frame, because we had it somewhere within here, but you could easily start to look for buys, especially if the market breaks above here to the upside, only to actually end up getting into some head-on collision with these sellers who are sitting here. And that's the reason why we've adjusted that level just slightly higher. So for this one, let's see what happens. The sellers do look like they're really starting to come in. If you look at how the buyers were coming up and right now what's going on, there's a possibility this could be the big sellers starting to come in within that region. But also remembering that, the area that we're in right now is definitely an area that has some big sellers. I mean, just looking at and going back to the 1 hour time frame, you can see that the market did actually end up pushing to the downside quite aggressively. This was on Tuesday. So you can see that the sellers came down aggressively. The buyers have pushed back in within this region. Maybe this could be the first sign, that the sellers are now starting to really come back in. But of course, we do need to see a bit more of what does end up happening before we do jump in on the sells. So hopefully what we should be expecting to see is on the next push of the buyers, how does it end up happening? If we really get the buyers really struggling within this region, I think at that point in time, we could possibly end up getting some sells, within that region there. Of course, if we still do end up seeing that the sellers are still quite adamant, then at least we could possibly try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities, maybe even when the market breaks beneath this region to the downside, especially for the guys who want to be a bit more conservative and you don't really want to get those aggressive sells at the top right there. You definitely could wait and see, especially if the market breaks beneath this region to the downside, nice breach, possibly the market pulls back in within that region, then you could jump in on the sells and hopefully could find that sell actually coming down, maybe all the way till within this region, but you'll still definitely need to watch out for that region at the middle right there. So let's see if that does end up happening. If it does, then at least you should be ready for that. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now for gold, yesterday, the buyers was to try and see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. So similar situation to what happened on silver. So in the morning, price was here. We did want to see the market either break to the downside or this region to the downside. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And the buyers did push up. Market came back in within here. There were some attempts by the sellers to push the market to the downside, but it's like the sellers were not quite ready. And you can't see that the market did push to the upside. And as much as, there were some attempts within this region, but of course, we did want to see the market come in within here. But it seems like some sort of a minus and R within this region was giving issues because you can see that every time the sellers attempted to go lower, it's like this buyer who had stepped up and pushed this market to the upside was actually maintaining the price above this region to the upside. And you can see that the market actually did end up going north. So for this one, for today, the levels are the same. So in as much as the pullback came in quite deep, let's see what does end up happening because you can see that also for this one, the sellers are also now starting to step back into the market. So let's see what happens within there. I think for gold, the last few days it's been coming down, and you can see that within this region here, this is where the big sellers are sitting. Something similar to what we've seen on silver as well. So the buyers have actually stepped into their turf, into the sellers' turf within there. And you could easily find that the sellers could actually step back in. This could be the first sign. So similar situation to what I pointed out on silver, although this one, the market looks like it's really pushed to the upside. Let's see what happens. If we can get the market possibly pulling back in within here, you could actually get the sells off this area right here, but we'll have to see a bit more of what does end up happening. Because if that doesn't happen and, the buyers really attempt to push the market to the upside, there's a possibility they will need that price there. And if that does end up being the case, then at least we should be ready for it. And you could find that maybe at around 430, because, gold, silver, the Dow Jones and the NAS 100 normally tend to have a large probability of moving within those times. So you could watch out for that, but the buyers, for as long as we're holding beneath here, should be to look for those selling opportunities. I mean, if you get buys, it's okay, but just have it at the back of your mind that the sellers can also step in, at any given point in time without any warning. So just have that at the back of your mind as well. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. and also the indices and the commodities. So hopefully you've taken note of what the game plan is going to be looking like. So I think we can look at some questions on the Q&A section. So I see Alan Ronald there. Good to see you saying hi, John. Thanks a lot. Karibu sana, Alan. Always good to see you here with your usual vote of thanks. I see Patricia Mwangi there. You're saying, hi, John, can you display AUD USD? So AUD USD, for this one, we're trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas and what the game plan we're expecting on it. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. Let's see if the market turns off this region. Maybe it was just looking for these buyers within here. So if we can get the market pushing above this region to the upside and actually get to hold, then we could look for the buys, at that point in time. If not, because right now we're not too sure whether this is a probe or if the sellers are actually going to maintain this price beneath here. So we just need to wait because it could easily come back in, bounce off there, and I guess maybe the proper buys could actually happen off this region right here. So we just have to be a bit patient, but I hope we've taken note of that. So I'm not seeing any more questions, which is perfectly fine. We also need to jump in on the London session, which is about to begin. There will be some CHF news events that are going to be coming out right now. In case there's any change, then we'll definitely let you know on the Telegram channel. I think the link should be in the chat box, but I think most of you are already there. So in case there's any change on that, then we'll definitely let you know. So I guess that's pretty much it from me. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to be here with me. I always say, and I always, keep on repeating, I know that you're busy people, but you give us a piece of your day or a couple of minutes of your day each and every day, Monday to Friday, and we're grateful for that. Hope you're achieving a lot in terms of the charts. If you're not, keep fighting. This thing is not easy, but it's doable. If you do need much more help in terms of your trading, feel free to also reach out to us. You can visit our website, www.afriforex.com. And also, our contact details are right there on the chat box. So in case you actually do want to talk to us as well, then feel free to do so. We'll be more than happy to see how we can end up helping you. So I see Daniel Simiyu there saying, thank you, John and Afriforex team. Karibu sana, that Biket, and also shout out to you once again for your wonderful screenshots that we did end up looking at earlier. So I guess that's pretty much it from me. So I guess we'll see you guys on Monday. So with that, happy trading, have a restful weekend, and may the pips be with you. God bless, and bye for now.